The desert was endless, stretching under two suns that burned without mercy. The human walked slowly, each step heavy in the shifting sand. His lips were dry, his throat cracked, but he refused to stop. He had come too far, chasing whispers of something hidden beneath these dunes. For days, he had seen no sign of life, only the wind-carving waves across the desert floor. His equipment was failing, his water nearly gone, and he began to wonder if the legends were nothing but lies. Yet still, something inside him pushed forward, a feeling that the desert was hiding more than sand. Then, one evening, when the sky burned red and gold, he saw her. A small figure standing on a ridge of stone, her silver skin catching the dying light. She was not human, her body lean and graceful, her dark eyes watching him with an intensity that made his heart pound. For a moment, he thought it was a mirage, but as he blinked, she remained. The human froze, unsure if she was friend or enemy. She did not move, only tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Then, without a word, she turned and began to walk. Her steps were light, almost floating over the sand. She glanced back once, and he understood she wanted him to follow. His instincts screamed at him not to trust her. He was alone, weak, and lost, and yet something about her drew him in. Her presence was not threatening, but strange, like the desert itself had given birth to a secret guide. He hesitated, then forced his tired legs to move. He followed the alien girl into the deepening night. The silence of the desert was broken only by the sound of the wind. The girl never spoke, but her pace was steady. Leading him further away from the path he had marked, the stars emerged above them, thousands of bright points in the black sky. And the human felt small under their endless gaze. Hours passed, and exhaustion clawed at him. Yet every time he stumbled, the girl slowed just enough for him to catch up. It was as if she knew his limits, as if she had walked this path many times before. He tried to speak, to ask her who she was, where she was leading him, but his voice cracked, and no sound came out. She only looked back with unreadable eyes and continued forward. At last, they reached a rise where the sand met stone. From the top, he could see faint shapes in the distance. Dark against the moonlit dunes, the girl stopped. Lifting her hand toward the horizon, he followed her gaze and felt his breath catch. There, half buried beneath mountains of sand, stood a structure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was a pyramid, vast and silent, its sides broken, but still. Towering, the surface glimmered faintly, as though the stone itself was alive. The air around it seemed heavy, vibrating with a low hum. The human's heart pounded in his chest. He had dreamed of finding ruins, but this was beyond anything he imagined. The girl turned back to him, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight for the first time. He noticed her expression. It was not pride, not triumph, but fear. Her hand trembled as she pointed toward the pyramid. He understood then that this was not simply a discovery. It was a place of power, dangerous and forbidden. Still, he could not look away. Something deep inside him called out. Pulling him toward the ancient stone, the girl seemed to sense his thoughts. And for the briefest moment, her lips parted as if she would speak. But instead, she turned back and began walking toward the buried monument. Her steps quicker now, urgent. The human felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Every instinct told him to turn back, to escape the strange guide and the cursed structure. Yet curiosity burned stronger than fear. He followed her down the slope, the sand slipping under his boots. Each step brought him closer to the unknown, to a mystery waiting for centuries to be uncovered. The desert swallowed them in silence once more, but now the air was thick with tension. The human knew that his life was no longer his own. By following this alien girl, he had crossed a line. There would be no return to the world he once knew. For in the heart of the desert, under the watchful stars, destiny waited inside the lost pyramid. The desert night was cold, yet the human felt sweat on his skin. The pyramid's shadow in the distance called to him. But it was the alien girl who kept his feet moving. She was silent, graceful, her steps never faltering. As if she knew every dune and ridge in the endless desert, he watched her closely, wondering who she was. She had the shape of a girl, but everything about her was alien. Her long limbs moved too smoothly, her eyes glowed faintly under the starlight, and her silver skin shimmered like water. He wanted to ask questions, but his throat was dry, and her silence pressed on him like a weight. At times, she slowed and looked back, as if checking he was still behind her. Her eyes met his, deep and unreadable, and then she turned again, leading him further. It was strange, but he felt she understood his weakness. When he stumbled, she paused. When he gasped for breath, she waited. She never spoke. Yet she guided him as if his survival mattered to her. The dunes gave way to rougher ground, the sand broken by jagged black stone. The human's boots scraped as he climbed. His mind spun with doubts. Was she leading him to safety or to his death? Was she a savior or a trap sent by the desert itself? He remembered the story's alien ruins, forbidden lands, and those who never returned. His heart beat faster, but his curiosity burned stronger. As they climbed higher, he noticed faint markings on the stones. Strange carvings etched deep, glowing softly with a pale light. He touched one, and the stone thrummed like a living heart. The girl froze, her head snapping toward him. Her eyes widened with something like fear. She shook her head slowly and motioned for him to follow without touching again. He obeyed, but his mind swirled. Why did the carvings react to him and not her? What was hidden in this desert? The silence between them was heavy, yet he felt as though invisible threads tied him to her. She was not just guiding him, she was testing him. Hours passed. The moons rose higher, casting the desert in silver light. The human's body screamed for rest, but every time he thought of stopping, he saw the girl's figure ahead, steady and sure. She moved like someone who belonged to this land. Someone shaped by its secrets he followed, because turning back meant dying alone, and going forward meant answers. Finally, they reached a plateau of dark stone. From here, the pyramid loomed larger, closer, its buried sides glowing faintly in the distance. The girl stopped, standing still as a statue. The wind howled around them, carrying whispers through the rocks. She raised her hand and pointed toward the structure again. Her eyes shone with a strange mix of fear and expectation. The human stepped closer to her. "Why me?" he whispered, his voice cracked, dry and weak. The girl's lips parted as if she might answer, but no sound came. Instead, she turned away and began to descend the other side of the plateau. Her silence was sharper than words. They moved into a canyon where shadows grew thick. The walls rose high on both sides, carved with ancient symbols. The human felt the air change, heavy and electric. Every step deeper into the canyon felt like walking into the lungs of a sleeping beast. The girl's pace quickened, and her silver skin gleamed brighter in the darkness. She seemed afraid, yet determined. At the canyon's heart, they came to a narrow passage sealed with smooth black stone. The human reached out, but the girl grabbed his wrist suddenly. Her touch was cold, her grip strong, for the first time. Her eyes held something clear warning. She shook her head firmly, pointing instead to a hidden path around the stone. He understood. Whatever lay beyond that sealed passage was not for him. Not yet. She led him along the secret trail, weaving between sharp rocks until they emerged into a valley of broken pillars. Each pillar was carved with faces, alien and strange. Twisted in agony or awe, the human shivered, wondering what kind of people had built this place and why they had vanished. The girl walked among the pillars like one returning home. She touched one gently, her silver fingers resting on its surface for the first time. Her lips moved in a whisper, too soft for him to hear. It was as if she prayed to the stone, to the memory of her people. The human stood in silence, watching her. He realized then that she was not just a guide. She was a guardian, bound to this desert, bound to the pyramid, and now, for reasons unknown, she had chosen him. When she turned back, her eyes were brighter, filled with something fierce. She walked to him, close enough that he could see the faint lines etched on her skin. Like living tattoos, she lifted her hand and pointed to his chest. Then to the pyramid. It was not words, but the meaning was clear. He was connected to it. In ways she was not. The truth sank into him like a blade. The pyramid had been waiting, not for her, not for her people, but for him, for a human. That was why she had come, why she had led him across the deadly desert. He wanted to speak, to demand answers, but before he could, the ground rumbled beneath their feet. Dust fell from the broken pillars, and the air vibrated with an ancient hum. The girl's expression tightened, urgency burning in her eyes. She turned and began to run toward the looming pyramid, her movements quick and desperate. The human swallowed his fear. His body was broken and tired, but something deeper pushed him forward. He chased after her, knowing that the silence was ending. Whatever waited inside the lost pyramid was awake, and he was the one it had been waiting for. The pyramid rose from the sand like the spine of a sleeping giant. Half of it was buried, yet its broken peak still towered above the desert floor. The human stopped when he saw it up close, his breath catching in his chest. It was not just stone. It was something far older, something alive. The alien girl stood beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly under the twin moons. Her eyes were wide, not with wonder, but with fear. She lifted her trembling hand, pointing at the massive slabs of stone. They shimmered faintly, carved with symbols that pulsed as though they had a heartbeat. The human stepped closer, his boots sinking into the sand. The air around the pyramid was heavy, thick, as if the place itself was breathing. He reached out, but stopped short. His instinct screamed at him that this was no ordinary ruin. This was a machine, a tomb, and a temple, all at once. The girl did not move closer. She stayed behind him, her body tense, her lips pressed together in silence. The human turned to look at her, searching for answers, but she gave none. Her eyes only told him one truth: this place was forbidden. Yet he was the one meant to enter it. As he circled the structure, he saw broken stairways buried in sand, doors sealed shut by centuries of stone, and strange statues half collapsed around the base. They were not human figures. Their faces were long, their eyes too wide, their expressions twisted with pain and reverence. The human shivered, wondering if they were guardians or victims. The pyramid seemed endless, larger with every step. His hand brushed against a stone block, and the surface was smooth, too smooth, like metal polished for ages. The stone was cold, but beneath it, he felt vibration, a hum as though something deep inside was awake. The girl's sharp intake of breath made him stop. She shook her head quickly, her eyes flashing. She pointed to herself, then to the sand, then back to him. The message was clear. She could not go inside. Only he could. He tried to ask why, his voice hoarse. Why me? But she only lowered, her gaze pressing her hand against her chest. Then she gestured again to the pyramid, her finger trembling, urging him forward. The human turned back, his heart pounding. He placed his hand firmly against the glowing stone, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the carvings beneath his palm lit up, lines of light spreading outward like rivers of fire. The pyramid groaned, a deep, ancient sound, and the sand shook under his feet. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Her lips finally parted, and, for the first time, she spoke. Her voice was soft, broken. But her words cut deep. "Only you." The human stared at her, confusion filling his mind. But before he could speak, the pyramid answered with a thunderous crack. A section of the wall split open, stone shifted, grinding like gears. Revealing a dark passage that breathed out cold air, the girl stepped back. Fear etched across her face. She shook her head and motioned for him not to enter. But the human could not look away. The door pulsed with light, and inside, faint glimmers moved like stars trapped in shadow. He stepped closer, every part of him trembling. He felt like he stood on the edge of a great abyss, one step from losing himself forever, yet something deep inside him pushed forward. Stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. He had come too far to turn back now. The girl moved suddenly, grabbing his wrist. Her grip was cold and desperate. Her eyes burned into his. Pleading, she whispered again, "Danger." Her voice cracked with something close to sorrow, as if she knew what waited inside would change him. The human stared at her, torn between trust and destiny. But then the pyramid spoke again. The ground shook harder, and the open passage widened. A deep hum filled the air, and from inside the darkness came a faint golden glow. Pulsing like a heartbeat, he pulled his hand free from her grip. His face was pale, but his eyes were fixed on the open door. "I have to know," he whispered, more to himself than to her. The girl's lips trembled, but she said no more. She only lowered her head as though mourning what could not be stopped. The human stepped forward. His shadow stretched long into the glowing darkness. The air grew colder, pressing against his skin like invisible hands. Each step echoed, swallowed by the silence inside. The passage seemed alive, the walls shifting faintly, patterns glowing brighter as he moved deeper. Behind him, the girl stood at the threshold. She did not follow. Her figure was small against the towering stone, her silver skin shining faintly. In the moonlight, she looked like a guardian left behind. Bound to watch but never to enter, the human's heart thundered as he reached the end of the passage. Ahead lay a vast chamber, its walls covered in flowing symbols. The floor glowed faintly. As though light moved beneath the stone, at the chamber's center rose a pedestal. And upon it rested something that looked both alien and human, a sphere of crystal. Pulsing with life, the hum grew louder, filling his bones. The sphere pulsed faster, reacting to him. It was waiting for his touch. He froze, breathless. His hand hovered above the glowing sphere. He felt the girl's eyes on him, even though she stood outside. He knew this was the moment, one choice that would bind him to the pyramid forever. And with trembling fingers, he reached out. The chamber was silent, yet the silence was alive. The human stood frozen, his hand hovering over the glowing sphere. It pulsed gently, as if it had a heartbeat, as if it was calling to him. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating in his bones. It was not just sound. It was something deeper, something ancient, behind him at the edge of the passage. The alien girl waited. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her wide eyes glistened with fear. She had not followed him inside, but she watched. Every movement he made, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak again. But no words came, only silence, heavy and sharp. The human lowered his hand slowly, fighting the urge to touch. His instincts screamed danger, but curiosity burned stronger. He stepped closer, his boots echoing against the glowing stone floor. The sphere's light flared brighter as he approached, casting shadows that danced along the carved walls. The symbols shifted, rearranging themselves. As if they were alive, he reached out again, and just as his fingertips brushed the sphere, the girl cried out. Her voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and desperate. Stop. The word shook him because it was not just fear, it was pain. As though she knew exactly what would happen if he continued, the human pulled his hand back. Breathing hard, he turned toward her. His voice rough. "What is this place?" The girl shook her head slowly, her eyes glistening. She raised her hand and pointed at the sphere, then pressed her palm against her chest. Then, trembling, she pointed to him. The message was clear, was meant for him. Not her. He clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside. "Why me?" he whispered. His voice cracked in the heavy air, but there was no answer, only the hum that grew louder. The chamber seemed to lean closer, the walls glowing brighter, urging him to make the choice. Suddenly, the ground rumbled, dust falling from the ceiling. The symbols on the walls lit up like fire, stretching across the chamber in rivers of gold. A section of the wall behind the pedestal split apart with a deep, grinding sound, revealing a doorway. "The forbidden door," the girl gasped, stepping back as though the very sight of it burned her. Her hands shook as she signed frantically, pointing to the door, then shaking her head over and over. Her meaning was clear: he must not go in. But the human felt a pull, stronger than before. The door glowed faintly, a light spilling from its cracks. The air rushing out was cold and sharp, carrying the scent of something old, something untouched for centuries. His chest tightened, but his legs moved forward on their own. The girl's footsteps echoed as she rushed into the chamber. She grabbed his arm with both hands, her eyes wide with panic. Her voice came again, low and broken. "Danger, death." Her words trembled, as if speaking them caused her pain. She shook her head violently, pulling him back, but the glow from the forbidden door pulled harder. The human looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he saw more than fear. He saw sorrow, deep and endless, as though she had guided others here before and watched them all fall. Her silence was not choice, it was memory, memory of loss. He whispered, "If I don't, we'll never know." His voice was steady, though his heart thundered. She shook her head again, tears forming. Her silver fingers clung to his arm. But the door continued to open, stones sliding away with the weight of ages. With a heavy groan, the doorway revealed a staircase descending into darkness. Faint lights pulsed along the walls like veins, glowing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The air that spilled out was cold and sharp, but beneath it was a strange warmth, like a voice whispering welcome. The girl let go suddenly, stepping back as if she could not cross the threshold, her face twisted with grief. Her lips parted as she whispered one final word: choice. Then she turned away, pressing her forehead against the stone wall, unable to watch what he would do. The human stared at the stairs, his body trembling. He knew this was more than exploration. This was a path that once taken could never be undone. The sphere behind him pulsed brighter, as if urging him to return, but the door ahead pulled stronger. He swallowed hard, his hands shaking. Every instinct told him this was madness, that the girl was right. But curiosity, that dangerous spark inside him, burned brighter. Humanity had always stepped into the forbidden, always reached beyond the limit. And he was no different. He placed one foot on the first stair. The stone was cold, the hum louder now. His shadow stretched down into the darkness, swallowing him whole. The girl sobbed softly against the wall, her voice breaking in a language he could not understand. The door sealed behind him with a thunderous crack, cutting him off from the girl. From the desert, from the stars above, darkness wrapped around him, lit only by the faint glow of the pulsing veins in the stone. The hum became words in his mind, whispers he could not understand. Yet somehow felt. He walked down slowly, every step heavier. The air was thick, pressing against him. The staircase twisted deeper into the pyramid, and with every step, he felt less like a man and more like something the pyramid itself was shaping. At the bottom, the passage opened into another chamber, larger, darker, and filled with rows of statues. They were tall, alien figures with long arms and hollow eyes, all facing the center where a great door stood, far larger than the one he had passed through. The hum grew into a roar, shaking the chamber. The statues seemed to breathe, shadows moving across their faces. The human knew then that this was no ruin, no tomb. This was a prison. And with his touch, he had just opened the first lock. The human stood at the bottom of the long staircase, his breath echoing in the vast chamber. The statues loomed around him, tall and alien, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They seemed to watch him, silent and patient. As though waiting for something, the great door ahead pulsed with light golden veins running across its surface. The hum in the air was stronger now, no longer just sound, it was a rhythm. Like a voice speaking without words, it thrummed in his bones, pulling him closer with every step. He swallowed hard, his heart pounding behind him. The staircase stretched upward into shadow, sealing him off from the desert, from the alien girl who had begged him not to enter. Ahead, the massive door waited, ancient and alive. The human walked slowly, his footsteps heavy on the glowing floor. As he passed the statues, he felt their eyes burn into him. For a moment, he thought he saw one move, a shadow shifting across its face. He froze, his breath caught, but the figure remained still, carved and silent at the center of the chamber. He stopped before the door. His hand trembled as he reached out. The moment his skin brushed the glowing surface, the hum roared to life. The entire pyramid shook, dust raining from the ceiling. The golden veins blazed with light, flooding the chamber. The statues shuddered, their stone faces cracking. The human staggered back, his eyes wide as the light grew brighter. The statues opened their hollow eyes, glowing like fire. Their stone bodies split apart, revealing something beneath metal. Wires and glowing cores. They were not statues at all. They were machines, guardians of the pyramid. The human's breath caught, his legs trembled. He had awoken them. The guardians turned their heads slowly, all facing him, their movements heavy and mechanical. The hum of the pyramid was now a deep, thunderous chant. Filling the chamber like the heartbeat of a god, the great door rumbled, splitting down the middle. A blinding light poured out, forcing him to shield his eyes. From the doorway came a rush of air, cold and sharp, carrying the scent of dust and fire. The chamber trembled as though the pyramid itself was alive. Then came a voice, not spoken, but inside his mind. It was deep, endless, layered with echoes of countless beings. "You are the one." The words struck through his skull. He staggered, clutching his head, but the voice continued. Human hands awaken what was bound. The guardians stepped forward, their heavy feet shaking the ground. Their glowing eyes burned brighter. They did not attack, but they closed in, forming a circle around him. It was not a trap, it was a ceremony. The human's heart pounded. He tried to speak, his voice breaking. "What are you?" His words were swallowed by the roar of the chamber. The voice in his mind answered, "We are the keepers. We were bound to guard the prison until the chosen one arrived." The human stared at the glowing door, fear twisting his chest. A prison, not a temple, not a treasure. He realized now why the alien girl had begged him not to enter. Whatever was locked behind that door was not meant to be freed. The golden light dimmed for a moment, and within the doorway he saw a shadow move. Something vast, chained in darkness. He could not see its form, but he felt its presence, heavy and ancient. It pressed against his mind like a storm, whispering promises of power. The girl's voice echoed in his memory. Her trembling word, danger. His stomach twisted. He should have listened, but it was too late. The door had already opened, the chains inside rattled, the air trembling. With every sound, the guardians lifted their arms, glowing circuits racing across their bodies. They began to chant in unison. Their voices mechanical, yet filled with sorrow. The words were not human, but he understood their meaning. They were not trying to stop him. They were trying to hold the prison closed. The human staggered back, his eyes wide, the shadow inside. The doorway grew larger, pressing forward against the glowing chains. The hum of the pyramid reached a deafening roar. The floor beneath him cracked. Glowing lines racing outward from the doorway like rivers of fire. He shouted, his voice drowned by the storm. I didn't mean to. His hands shook, his body trembling. But the pyramid did not care for meaning or mistakes. The awakening had already begun. Suddenly, the guardian's eyes flared with white light. They turned their heads back to him. Their voices entered his mind as one. You must choose. The words echoed like thunder. Seal the prison, or release what is bound. The human's chest tightened. His eyes darted to the doorway. To the chained shadow that pulsed with raw power, his body screamed to run. But his mind whispered of what lay within knowledge. Strength, the power of an ancient race. The alien girl's face flashed in his thoughts. Her wide eyes filled with sorrow, her trembling hands begging him to stop. He clenched his fists, torn between the weight of her warning and the burning hunger of curiosity. The great door opened wider, the chains snapping one by one. The chamber shook violently, sand and stone falling from above. The light grew blinding, and the voice in his mind grew louder, free me, and all will be yours. The human's heart raced. His breath came in ragged gasps. The guardians raised their arms again, the chamber glowing with power. The voice of the pyramid thundered in his skull. Choose now. His hand lifted, trembling, his shadow stretched. Long against the blinding doorway, he was only a man, lost in a desert, guided by a silent girl. Yet now he stood at the center of something that could change the fate of worlds, and with his next breath, the awakening would be complete. The chamber shook as the chains rattled louder. The shadow beyond the golden door pressed forward, its size impossible to measure. The humans stood frozen, surrounded by the guardians. Their glowing eyes burned into him, their chant rising higher. The hum of the pyramid thundered like the beating of a colossal heart. The voice inside his mind spoke again, deeper, sharper. You are chosen, human. The pyramid responds to your kind alone. The words filled his skull, pulling at his thoughts, bending his will. He staggered, clutching his head, his vision blurred. And when it cleared, the chamber itself seemed alive. The walls pulsed like veins, glowing in rhythm with his own heartbeat. The floor shifted faintly under his boots, as though the stone was breathing. It was no ruin, no dead tomb. It was alive. A machine built long before his time, waiting for him. The guardians raised their arms again. Their bodies split open, revealing shining cores of energy. Circuits glowed across their cracked stone shells. They were not statues, not simple machines. They were part of the pyramid itself. Extensions of its living body, bound to guard its heart. The human's chest tightened. He realized the truth. The girl had never been its master. She had only been a keeper. A guide meant to bring the one who could awaken it, and that one was him, a human. The golden door blazed brighter, the shadow inside straining harder. Its whispers filled his head, seductive and heavy. I was caged by the weak. Release me, and I will give you the strength of stars. The voice was endless. Layered with promises, his body trembled, torn between fear and desire. The guardian's chant clashed against the shadow's call. Their voices filled with sorrow and warning. The human stood in the center of the storm, his hands shaking. He wanted to run, but the pyramid held him, binding him with invisible threads. Suddenly, the air shifted. and he saw Hertha, alien girl. She stood at the edge of the chamber, her small form trembling. She had found a way past the sealed door. Her silver skin glowed in the golden light, and her eyes shone with desperate tears. She cried out, her voice breaking. "Stop!" Her words echoed through the chamber. Louder than before, she pointed at him, then at the shadow. Her hand shook violently. "Prison, danger." Her voice cracked. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest as though the very awakening was tearing at her soul. The human's heart twisted. He wanted to go to her. But the guardians blocked the way. Their glowing eyes never left him. Their chant became one final message in his mind. Only you can choose. Seal it or release it. The golden chains around the shadow snapped one by one. Sparks of light shot across the chamber, burning against the walls. The roar of the imprisoned thing shook the ground. The air grew heavy, pressing against his chest until every breath was pain. He stumbled forward, his hands stretching toward the great door. His mind screamed at him to stop, but his blood burned. With fire, he was human, and humanity had always touched the forbidden. Always reached for what others feared. The alien girl screamed again, her voice raw with fear. No. She slammed her palms against the ground, and the carvings around her glowed faintly. She was trying to fight it, to hold the pyramid back. But the living machine ignored her. It only listened to him. The human's hands touched the golden door. The hum became a roar. The chains inside burst apart, shattering into sparks. The shadow surged forward, its voice booming inside his skull. "Yes, you are mine." But then something strange happened. The guardians collapsed to their knees, their glowing cores flaring brighter. They began to fuse with the pyramid itself, their energy pouring back into the walls. The chamber screamed with power. The living machine was not just opening the prison, it was awakening itself. The walls shifted, patterns rearranging like shifting gears. The floor split apart, revealing endless layers of machinery beneath. Vast and endless, spinning and glowing with light. The human gasped. It was not a temple, not a tomb. It was a ship, a machine that had slept for thousands of years beneath the sand. The pyramid was alive, and it was waking up. The alien girl stumbled forward, her body shaking under the force of the awakening. She reached him, grabbing his arm with trembling hands. Her eyes burned with tears. "Please, stop, if you open it. Nothing will survive." Her touch shook him for the first time. The whispers in his head faltered. The shadow roared with rage, its chains snapping faster. But her presence cut through the storm. He looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he saw not an alien, not a stranger, but someone who carried the same fear, the same hope. The pyramid shuddered again. The machinery beneath glowed brighter. The chamber twisted as if folding space itself. The human realized the truth. The pyramid was not built to hold treasure. It was built to hold the prisoner and to use the chosen one as the key. The alien girl whispered again, her voice shaking. "Choice." Her hand pressed against his chest, over his heart. Human heart decides. He closed his eyes, sweat dripping from his brow. His whole body trembled as the pyramid screamed around him. The shadow's voice begged, promised, threatened. The guardian's fading chant pleaded. And the girl's trembling hand reminded him that he was still himself. Still human, the great machine roared as it reached its peak. The shadow pressed harder, the golden door splitting wider. The desert above trembled as sandstorms ripped across the land. The sky cracked with lightning, though no clouds had formed. The human opened his eyes. His hand glowed faintly. The pyramid, responding only to him. He knew this was it. One choice that would change not just his life, but the fate of the galaxy. Seal the prison, or release what was bound. The living machine waited, alive and awake, ready for its master's decision. The chamber roared like a storm trapped inside stone. The golden door cracked wide, chains snapping. One after another, the imprisoned shadows surged forward, its whispers striking the human's mind like knives. "Free me, and I will make you more than mortal." The human's chest rose and fell, sweat running down his face. His hand glowed faintly where it touched the pyramid. The living machine pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, waiting for him to decide around him. The guardians lay broken, their bodies fading into streams of light. Their voices still echoed. In his mind, faint but urgent, "Seal it, human, do not let it escape." The alien girl clung to him, her silver hands gripping his arm. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, choose life, not destruction." Her trembling eyes searched. His filled with sorrow, yet holding faith that he could resist, but the shadow's promises grew louder. It filled his thoughts with visions of power worlds bowing before him. Endless knowledge, eternal life. It whispered that humanity had always been weak, fragile. But with its power, he could rise above all. His knees buckled under the weight of the voices. He pressed his hand against his temple, his body shaking. His mind split into one side, burning with curiosity, the other trembling with fear. He looked at the girl, her tears falling onto the glowing floor. She had no power here, no strength. To stop the machine, all she could do was beg. The pyramid shook harder. Machinery beneath the stone screamed as gears the size of mountains turned. The desert above split with violent quakes. Sandstorms ripped across the dunes. Lightning cracked the sky where no storm clouds existed. The whole world trembled as if it waited for his choice. The human's eyes burned with determination. He spoke through gritted teeth, his voice rough. "Why me?" His words echoed in the chamber. The shadow answered at once, its voice thunderous and cruel. "Because only humans can open what the others feared. You were always meant to finish." What they could not, the guardians' fading voices pushed back. "No, you were chosen because humans can resist, not because they obey." The girl pressed her hand against his chest. Over his heart, her voice was a whisper, yet it cut through the chaos. "You are not just hands. You are heart." Her words shook him, reminding him that he was more than a key, more than a tool. The great door split wider, a burst of golden light blinded him. He saw the shadows straining against broken chains. Its form too vast to comprehend, shifting between wings, claws, and endless eyes. It was not life. It was hunger given shape. The human fell to his knees, his hand pressed against the glowing floor. His body trembled. He realized the truth. If he released it, the galaxy would burn. If he sealed it, the pyramid might destroy him too. The girl dropped to her knees beside him. Her forehead pressed against his shoulder. She whispered one final word. "Decide." His heart thundered. His body screamed in pain as the machine demanded his choice. The whispers of the shadow clawed at him, promising everything the voices of the guardians begged, offering nothing but silence. His own voice whispered inside him, quiet and human, reminding him why he had come. He was not here for power, not for glory, but for truth. Slowly, with trembling hands, he lifted his palm. The glow spread from his skin into the pyramid. The hum shifted. The golden door blazed brighter. But instead of opening further, the cracks began to close. The shadow roared in fury, its whispers turning to screams. "Fool, you waste eternity." The guardians' voices flared, filled with relief. "He chooses." Their light poured into the walls, merging with the machine. The chamber burned with brilliance. The chains reformed, stronger, glowing white instead of gold. The door sealed shut with a thunderous crash. The imprisoned shadow screamed one last time, then vanished into silence. The ground stilled. The storm above faded. The desert's winds softened to a whisper. the hum of the pyramid quieted until only his heartbeat remained. The human collapsed forward, gasping for breath, his body weak, his vision blurred. But the alien girl caught him, pulling him close. Her tears fell onto his face, her silver skin glowing softly. She whispered, "You chose right. The Guardians were gone, their forms absorbed into the living machine. The chamber dimmed, the glowing veins fading to a dull shimmer. The pyramid returned to silence, its life slowing once more. But it was not destroyed. It had only gone back to sleep, sealed again by human choice." The human lifted his eyes to the girl. "What now?" he whispered, his voice cracked. She shook, her head slowly, her lips trembling. Then she whispered softly, "Now, we leave." With great effort, he rose, leaning on her for strength. Together, they climbed back up the long staircase. The silence was heavy, but it was not empty. It was the silence of survival, of a world saved for another day. When they reached the surface, the desert stretched wide and calm. The stars shone above as if nothing had happened. Yet he knew the truth. Below them, the pyramid still breathed, still waited. It was alive. A machine bound by his choice. The girl turned to him, her dark eyes searching his face. For the first time, her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Human heart," she whispered again, as if those two words explained everything. He looked back at the dunes, at the silent shape of the pyramid half buried beneath the sand. He knew he had not destroyed it, only delayed what waited inside. Someday, another might come. Someday, the choice might return. But for now, the galaxy was safe. The human tightened his grip on the girl's hand. Together, they walked away into the endless desert. Two small figures under the stars, carrying the weight of a secret that would never die. And behind them, deep in the earth, the living machine slept once more, waiting for the day it would awaken again.